Welcome to the Dragon's Lair. Today, we're going way beyond the headlines. We're here to decode a deep historical algorithm that's been running for, get this, 2,000 years. The relationship between China and Iran. You know, what we're all seeing play out right now? It's not some new development. It's just the final output of a very, very old program. Let's get into it.
So what's the common story you hear? Oh, it's just a marriage of convenience, right? A simple reaction to US sanctions and all that Western pressure. It's a neat little story. And it's also dangerously short-sighted. It's just fundamentally wrong.
The reality goes so much deeper. This isn't something new, not at all. What you're seeing is the resurfacing of an incredibly resilient partnership. Honestly, it's an inevitability that's been 2,000 years in the making. This is just history reasserting itself with a vengeance.
So, if we want to understand this algorithm, we have to look at its source code. And that code? It's buried deep in ancient history. Now, this isn't just some boring background information. No, this is the very bedrock of the modern alliance.
I mean, just look at the sheer scope of this thing. It all starts way back in 1390 BC. You've got the Han Dynasty's envoy Zhang Qian making first contact, looking for allies along the Silk Road. Then it gets deeper, culturally. We're talking about Persians actually helping introduce Buddhism to China. And then you get the real glue, a shared trauma in the 19th century, when both of these ancient empires were humiliated by Western colonial powers. That shared history of glory followed by subjugation, that creates a bond that is powerful and, frankly, almost impossible to break.
But you know, this relationship went way beyond just swapping goods. There was this period of incredible political and cultural fusion, and it has echoes that you can still hear today.
Just think about this for a second. During the Yuan dynasty in the 13th century, Persian was one of the official languages of the Chinese court. You had Persian officials serving the Mongol rulers in China and Chinese officials serving in Persia. This wasn't just some partnership. It was a full-on integration. I mean, that's a level of political connection that the West has never, ever come close to having with either of these nations.
Okay, so let's fast forward. For centuries, this ancient algorithm, it kind of lay dormant. But then one single event, just one, reactivated the whole thing. And it transformed this old historical connection into a modern hard power reality.
And what was that event? The Iran-Iraq War. Just a brutal, bloody conflict with 1 million casualties. The new Islamic Republic was traumatized, completely isolated, and they desperately needed to build up their military. But the West shut the door. The Soviets, same thing, but one power saw a huge strategic opportunity.
Yeah, you guessed it. China was the only major power willing to sell the military equipment. The only one. While the entire world was shunning Tehran, Beijing stepped right in. And this wasn't about ideology. No, it was about cold, pragmatic, strategic calculation. China made itself Iran's indispensable partner at a time when they had literally no one else. And let me tell you, this partnership paid off immediately. China gave them the know-how for their ballistic missile programs, it helped out with technology for the nuclear facilities at Bushehr and Isfahan, and they exported some pretty advanced weapons too, like the C-802 anti-ship missile. And if that name sounds familiar, it should. That's the same type of missile Hezbollah used to hit an Israeli naval ship back in 2006. Suddenly, this old historical connection, it was armed, and it was very, very dangerous.
All right, so the military connection is locked in. The next step in the algorithm? Make the partnership economically unbreakable, insulate it so that no amount of outside pressure could ever crack it.
And in 2021, we all saw the results of that. A reported $400 billion, with a B, 25-year cooperation program. Let's be clear, this is not just some trade deal. It is a generational commitment. What we're watching is the construction of an entirely new economic reality in the Middle East, and Beijing is the architect. The whole strategic objective here is to build what we call an economic spine for Iran. Think about it. By building up Iran's infrastructure, we're talking ports, pipelines, energy, the whole shebang, China is deliberately making Iran's economy sanction-proof. Because, look, an isolated Iran is a dependent Iran, and a dependent Iran gives China a permanent, very powerful lever in the world's most critical energy corridor.
And so, here we are. That 2,000-year-old algorithm has reached its modern conclusion, and it's handed Beijing an incredibly powerful strategic weapon, a weapon that has two very, very different edges. We call this the two-sided knife, because now, as Iran's undisputed patron, China holds all the cards. On one hand, Beijing could use its leverage to restrain Iran, force it to pull back on its proxy wars and stabilize the region, because, hey, China has its own energy investments to protect. But, on the other hand, that very same economic spine that China built, it gives Iran total impunity. Tehran can act as aggressively as it wants because it knows it has a superpower in its corner, ready to shield it from any real consequences.
So that leaves us with the crucial question for this century, doesn't it? Now that Beijing has its hand firmly on this knife, will it act like a surgeon, carefully carving out regional stability to protect its own interests, or will it become an assassin, unleashing a client state to tear up the global order? The algorithm has finished running. The choice is now Beijing's.